Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Well, good evening and welcome to the August regular meeting of the Greencastle School Board. First item on the agenda is adjustments to the agenda. Mr. Gibney.
Yep, so I do have a couple of items this month. Under new business 8H, we received several late arriving donations to help support us in our response to COVID-19. So we'd like to be able to accept those funds tonight so that we can spend them. Mary Allison's Children's Trust to Ridpath Elementary, $1,000. Hendricks Power to GCSE, $500. And then Park County REMC to GCSE, $500.
Okay, I'll probably just ask you to repeat all those for we're going to approve it.
Sounds good.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjust the agenda? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any comments or any? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is public comments regarding agenda items. Do we have any public comments regarding the agenda items? Okay, hearing none, move on. Next, under on the agenda is recognitions. Mr. Gibney.
Yeah, so as a new part of our board meeting, adding recognitions to the start of each board meeting in September, we'll start recognizing students of the month. But recognitions is also a time for our building principals and administrators to highlight staff members that have gone above and beyond, highlight accomplishments of teams, or just to share really positive stories from their schools. So any of our administrators present have recognitions to share. If you could come forward to the microphone, please.
I'll go first. I like to talk anyway. So some of the pictures that were up on the screen, just recognizing that our team building day that we have done every year for the last 4 or 5 years, we still managed to carry that off flawlessly thanks to Mrs. Landry. She put together just a whole variety of activities all around the building and outside where the kids were still socially distanced, and they had a great time. And you can even see most of them wear their mask even when they're outside. The kids are having no problem at all, and so that's been great. We haven't had any issues there. I would also recognize Shannon Green and Myrna Sherman in our library for putting a traveling library together. We're not having kids come into the library weekly to check out books, so they have set it up, and there was some pictures up on the screen about that. So they're setting up little tables outside of each pod and setting out books, and the kids come out and they can still look at a book. They have the rule of if you touch it, you check it out. So they are still getting to check books out from our library. We also received $1,000 from Mary Allison. I just don't have the letter over to you yet because I forgot to print it. So it will be coming soon. And then lastly, I would recognize not just the TZ virtual teachers, but all of the virtual teachers in Greencastle. They are doing some amazing things, and they've come up with some, up against a few bumps here and there, and they are working through them and providing for our virtual students. At TZ, there's a little over, say 59 is what we're at right now. So they've just been going above and beyond to get that all set up and running for us. So
thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Good evening. We want to recognize at the middle school our after-school program. that has really done some awesome things. They've gotten a fridge for our life skills class, picnic tables, and put gravel in so that our teachers can go outside and have some classes. They also have some great programs that they're doing. They've ordered books for our school. They're consulting with a group that's coming in and doing career exploration with students. And they're working with DePauw, and they're having kids make memorable memorial items with the COVID experience. And the Putnam County Library is going to get capsules for the kids so that they can put them in there, and then they're going to display them in the museum. So that was really cool what they're doing. Also with us, with our virtual kids, we have 90+ students now. Our office team and our virtual teachers are working really hard to make sure all those kids get serviced and get the help that they need throughout the day and then also in the evenings.
Thank you.
I wanted to share a report on our TK program that you approved last month. So one of the first things that we did to help with our transitional kindergarten was we did not place our kindergarten students in classrooms, and Superintendent Gibney found out that we had a child at transfer say that she went to the school with an owl. So we realized we will have to work on that a little bit for next school year, is letting you know at least that you are a Redpath or Deer Meadow kiddo. The identification process that we used was spot on, and Jamie Whitaker currently is our kindergarten teacher, and so the curriculum that she has, that she is really using at that intense, precise moment of what those students need, is really fulfilling them and giving them that extra foundation for them to grow. Again, with the virtual teachers, right before school started, I had a teacher say, I think I want to do this, and she did it, and she's been phenomenal. And I am so impressed with the leadership from Dr. French and Superintendent Gibney for giving these virtual teachers the time to come together, really work through and strategize. And these families, the grace that they have shown us has been amazing. I feel like every time we figure out something, another hiccup pops up, and we'll say, we're so sorry. Like, that's okay, we're figuring this out together. So I just want to say thank you so much for believing in us and giving us this opportunity.
Thank you.
Deer Meadow highlights simply got a good school opening. It went much more smoothly than I anticipated, and that's really due to just the planning that our staff has done. And it's also nice to be supported, Kyle at Transportation, on those days that we get a Redpath kid showing up at Deer Meadow or vice versa, or somebody's unsure on the transportation home as they get to transfer, knowing that our kids are going to be taken care of. Similar to TZ and Redpath, we're also having our media specialist and assistant where we're going room to room as far as, instead of kids going to our media center to check out books, we're getting books in kids' hands. I do want to recognize one of my teachers, Jill Gooch, a Title I teacher, who's been a long-time classroom teacher as well, but filling in at second grade for me as we have one of our second grade teachers who's had to isolate as she takes her daughter to college. So just kind of an all hands on deck, and it's been a great opening. And we're appreciative of our parents because we changed our arrival, our drop-off, and our pickup procedures as necessary, and we've even had to flex those a little bit over the past 2 weeks. For example, the first day of school, granted we had more pickups at the end of the day than normal because it is the first couple of days of school, but pickup at the first day of school took 30 minutes. That was a long 30 minutes, and today it took 8.5. So that's just because I'm smart enough to listen to my staff because they have good ideas.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, thank you all. Anything else, Jeff? Okay, next item on the agenda is going to look a little different this evening. We are going to use a consent agenda to approve fairly routine items on the agenda: minutes, financial stuff, personnel reports. I'm gonna get all the same information from everyone, but we'll just be making one vote at the end of all that to approve everything. So the first item on the consent agenda is meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments about last month's meeting minutes? Okay. Next item would be allowance of claims. Mrs. Romer.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, in your packet, you'll see 3 payrolls this month. 3 Fridays that we had payrolls in July. So the first one you're going to see is going to be July 3rd with a total payroll of $372,729.78. Along with that payroll came your prepays, and those again would be for your payroll taxes, retirement, etc. Total on that, prepays for July 3rd, $109,633.40. Second payroll in July was July 17th, with a total payroll of $367,640.88. Along with that payroll were the prepays, and once again, payroll taxes, etc. You'll see an additional amount of $60.08. That was some updated turf we needed to do that was grant related. It was not caught until after the payroll was posted, so I had to make an adjustment on that. So total prepays for the July 17th payroll, $107,544.52. Your third and final payroll for July 31st, 2020, with a total payroll of $358,217.42. Along with that payroll came prepays. Once again, all payroll, tax related and retirement. Once again, you'll see an additional $10.58, again, turf related, an adjustment that needed to be made, again, that was grant related. For a total prepay for the July 31st payroll, $117,320.59. I know the prepays this month were kind of scattered. You have 3 full pages, and the reason why that happened was because First National Bank was changing their system, so they gave us 2 sets of statements this month. Long story short, I just went ahead and did the prepays by bank is what I did. It just made things a lot easier. So you'll see at the top of your packet, bank number 2. Total prepays for bank number 2 was $1,948,640.80. As you look through there, you'll see some, bigger numbers on there. And once again, July is the month that we make our bond lease payments. I think we talked briefly about that last month, that the prepays would probably be a little bit more this month. If you want to move on to the next prepay packet, you'll see that it says bank number 10 at the top. And these are the physical checks that I have to send out every month. Total prepays for the month July on bank 10 was $225,573.63. Again, the main expense on bank 10 is, again, the trust payment for health insurance. And you'll also see a third where it says for 1 cent to the trust. It's because when Kelly entered it, she put 94 cents instead of 95 cents. So I had to make that correction. So you'll see 1 cent on a prepay all by itself. Next in your packet, you're going to see regular claims for the month of August, dated today, August 24th. Was there any questions about the claims this month that I can answer for you before I finish up on that? Pending any questions, and you can come back to me if you need to, our total regular claims dated today, August 24th, is $439,860.96. I believe that Mr. Gibney is going to request approval on these. I guess we do it all at one time.
Yeah,
Is that what we're
yeah,
doing?
yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Would you like me to go ahead and move on to the fund report?
Sure.
Mr. White, okay. Okay, so the fund report this month, you'll see that in education fund as of July 31st, 2020, balance in education, $539,287.86. In operations fund, you'll see a balance of $1,661,211.52. Balance on all funds, $5,779,043.92. After your fund report in your packet, you're going to see a depository statement and bank balances for July. You have the balances for each bank. You'll have your less outstanding checks for each bank. If you look at the balance, July 2020, for depository statement and bank balance, that amount balances with our fund report. Did anyone have any questions on anything I can answer for you? Okay, that's all we have tonight. Thank you.
Next item in the consent agenda is personnel report part 1.
Yeah, so under certified this month, we have a retirement of Barbara Jesse, a special services teacher at Greencastle High School. We have a couple of resignations. First, from Cara Jadell, resignation as business social studies teacher at Greencastle High School. Resignation of Kirsten Kaufman as 5th grade teacher at TZ. We have several classified resignations this month as well. Rod Nodley, resignation head custodian at TZ. Deneen Earls, resignation as instructional assistant at TZ. Christine Stokes, attendance secretary at TZ. Jamie Berkemeyer, resignation as IA at Greencastle Middle School. Danette Williams, resignation cafeteria assistant at Greencastle Middle School. We have several pertaining to resignations pertaining to our 21st Century Community Learning Center instructor position at Greencastle Middle School. Those people are Anna Salcedo, Madeline Smith, Emma Houston, Leah Byers, Christy Din, Sophia Mosley, Ephraim Hale, and Danette Williams. I apologize in advance if there are any mispronunciations of names. A couple of bus driver resignations, Lindsay Fenwick, Brian Harris, Randy Stewart, and then long-term substitute teacher, Jennifer Hebert. We have no resignations from ECA, and that is personnel part 1 for this month.
Okay. Next on the consent agenda would be personnel report part 2, Mr. Givney.
Okay, several items pertaining to certified staff for this month. Approving intermittent FMLA leave for art as an art teacher at Greencastle Middle School, Amy Robinson. Hire as a 5th grade teacher at TZ, Julia Stevens. Approved transfer second grade teacher at Ridpath to 3rd grade teacher at TZ, Beva Miller. Approved FMLA as 2nd grade teacher at Deer Meadows, Stacy Allen. Hire as a long-term substitute for Stacy Allen, Grace Timberman. Approve a couple of 21st Century Community Learning Center instructor positions at Greencastle Middle School, Courtney Smith and Sharon Pitcock. Several items for classified staff. Hire as a media assistant at Greencastle High School, Catherine Burke. Hire as study hall instructional assistant at Greencastle High School, Michelle Bowler. Hire as second shift custodian at Greencastle High School, Isaiah Long. Hire as nurse assistant at Greencastle High School, Christina Jones. Hire as cafeteria assistant at Greencastle Middle School, Mary Christash. Approved transfer as cafeteria assistant at Ridpath to instructional assistant at Greencastle Middle School, Kathy Sibbett. Hire as in-school suspension instructional assistant at Greencastle Middle School, Rachel Crosby. And then we have several hires as 21st Century Community Learning Center instructors at Greencastle Middle School, Keegan Lammers, Anna Salcedo, Sophia Mosley, Leah Byers, Connie Pierce. Hire Troy Brown as head custodian at TZ. Hire as noon aide at TZ, Kathy Lewis. Hire as nurse assistant at TZ, Deer Meadow and Ridpath, Sarah Boer. Hire as noon aide at Deer Meadow, Kathy Brown. Hire as noon aide at Deer Meadow, Bailey Stolte. Hire as media assistant at Ridpath Primary, Stacy Wheeler. Approve transfer as instructional assistant at TZ to instructional assistant at Ridpath, Wanda Hutchinson. Hire as noon aide at Ridpath, Joy Fortune. Approve unpaid leave at Transportation Center, Megan Tesmer. And transfer as short route bus driver to long route bus driver at Transportation, Angela Garl. Several substitutes this month. Hire a substitute teacher, Esta Fulton, Brianna Schaefer, and then as a long-term substitute teacher, Amanda Marshall. Several ECA hires. Tom Hamilton hires assistant head football coach at Greencastle Middle School. Caleb Camacho hires assistant football coach at Greencastle Middle School. Amanda Hernandez hires cheer coach at Greencastle Middle School. One hires assistant football coach at Greencastle High School, Nathan Aker. A couple of volunteer assistant boys soccer coaches at Greencastle High School, Jacob Foss and Simon Foss. Approve as volunteer assistant volleyball coach at Greencastle High School, Mackenzie Woodall. Approve as volunteer assistant volleyball coach at Greencastle High School, Mason Clark. And a compensation adjustment for Melinda Short, who previously was the ISS supervisor and switched over to the attendance secretary position at Greencastle Middle School. And that's all I have for personnel part 2 this month. And unless there are any questions, I recommend approval of the consent agenda at this time.
I guess I have a question or two here. It looks like in going through when we were the resignations in personnel in part 1 and hires in part 2 under classified, 2 of the ones that just resigned from 21st Century Community Learning instructors.
That was
rehired. How did that?
Yeah, because it's they resigned effective at the end of the last school year.
Okay.
And so we're rehiring them for this school year.
Okay. So
they're not technically leaving.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I figured. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the report section. And first would be Assistant Superintendent's report. Dr. French.
To remind me of my notes. So we've been talking the last few months about how to get our kids here and the plan for what school would look like logistically, and we finally have them here, and so now we're focused on the plan and being prepared for if we have to close down again so that we can operate as effectively as if the students were here. And so that's kind of what I'm going to discuss with you tonight. Our plan, our draft anyway, of our at-home learning. And this will only apply to our on-campus students. So virtual students or students that are enrolled in our virtual program, nothing changes for them. If we have a shutdown and move to at-home learning, they will continue within their program and they don't have to miss a beat. So these changes only apply to our on-campus students. So Corey, if you could move to the next slide, the next one. So we want to make sure, and you've heard me say this before, but in the springtime, our e-learning was really emergency learning. So it was that on the spot, how do we get through and connect with our kids? And our focus was really maintaining the skills that we had built and just keeping track of our kids. And so going forward, we understand that there could be an ebb and flow of the at-home learning, that it might not just be a one-time thing. It might be kind of a revolving door with our staff and kids that may have to force us to close. So we'll have to be very adaptive. And we understand that we're going to have to move forward in our curriculum and keep going. And so those expectations are going to be set higher. And so with putting out this guidebook for families and for kids. It's our effort to let them know that expectation will be higher than it was in the spring, so we can't use the same grading scale that we did. We have to hold kids accountable, and if they're not there, and so we have to put up these expectations and front load those. And so our main expectation is that students will participate every day in online activities. And I know we've talked about our internet divide and how we can provide those solutions, and I know we're working on long-term solutions as a county. We've also set up partnerships with our local library and with our daycare centers. We have hotspots in front of all of our buildings, so students have places to go to at least upload and download their work on a regular basis. Even though that's not an ideal solution, it is a solution, and it's all that we can provide right now, and so that's how we're going to encourage that communication to families. So a daily educational activity, those time requirements that the DOE provides as 5 hours for elementary and 6 hours of instruction for secondary still remain intact. So that does not mean they have to be in front of a screen. That's reading, writing, thinking, any type of engagement in an educational activity. So setting that up front also. So kids will have daily opportunities to connect with their teachers through Canvas, through Google Meets. Those can be live sessions, those can be pre-recorded. We are asking that parents will do our attendance differently. If parents will have to call in for their students, if their student is ill or can't get on and participate that day, students will have to, or parents will have to notify their child's building, their principal or office staff. The teachers will be available in the same way, chat, phone, Google phone numbers, so they can receive texts and phone calls from parents that are stuck and trying to assist kids. They're going to have flexible hours, so they can adjust these wouldn't be additional hours into their contract, but just a flexible hour. So maybe a teacher logs on later in the afternoon so that they can be available to work into the late afternoon and evening, as some of our high school students prefer to do. And then again, we have to provide assessments, we have to keep due dates and things like that, so work will be counted incomplete or a 0 if nothing's turned in. So we will have those expectations going forward. Thank you, Corey. So also we want to make sure that parents understand that all of the same supports that students have opportunity to take place when they're on campus, they'll have those opportunities if we have our mandated shutdown learning too. So the libraries, our ELL teachers, our counseling, speech, any of the things that the kids have resources on campus, they will still have those during the school day. So those counselors and all of our staff will be reaching out to make connections with the kids that are on their caseload, working with families, making sure they're having those regular connections and meeting their needs, whatever their specific learning needs are. We are also setting up a tutoring system, and we're currently working that out right now, and we'll have that up and going for our virtual students and our on-campus students. And this will continue when we move to at-home learning, or if we move to at-home learning. And so tutoring can be provided virtually if it's safe and allowable. We will set it up so that it can come to on-campus. Our high school and middle school is also talking about doing some creative things with an internet cafe. So if students want to come in and receive tutoring or just have a place to work where they can socially distance but get that help and support, then we're going to try to do things like that as long as they're allowable and safe. And I believe there's one more, the tech support, and it would be the same tech support that we currently have set up now as a system for our virtual students. Students that need tech support would hit their teachers up first, and then if they can't solve the problem, they'll be rerouted to e-learning, and if a device needs repaired, it can be brought to central office and then returned the next business day. So I feel like we have a very solid plan. This is a plan that addresses K-12 consistencies. There will be a lot of more specific details that will come from each building that will be more individualized to that level to meet those kids' needs, but we're trying to develop a guide that parents can that will help them prepare and be able to better plan, so that it's a K-12 wide consistent guide. So any questions over that? Again, this is just draft form. We're still getting feedback from our staff currently.
Right. Right. Right, no, we would ask everybody to stay in whatever the current program they're in. Yeah. Anything else?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the superintendent report. Mr. Gibney.
Yep, so just a couple of items this month. Just want to update the board to completion of, or almost completed with regards to a couple of our projects that took place over the summer. The middle school gym floor is down, it's installed. It looks really, really nice. The middle school gym has been painted. The new bleachers have been installed. I'm still waiting on some parts for those to be fully complete. New wall padding was also installed today, so we are going to have a really nice gym facility for our middle school students to use for quite some time. We fixed the AC in the auxiliary gym that had been down for about 10 years, I think. But that's been really great because we've had to rely heavily on some additional space for lunches, for study hall, and to just allow kids to spread out, or if we have to combine classes. So just to update on a few of those projects, I would obviously like to thank all of our staff, and many of you who are here right now, for just a good opening to the start of school under the conditions that we're operating on. I feel like for the most part, things have gone really well. We understand that the situation is fluid, and we are prepared to adjust accordingly as needed. But it's been a collective effort. I think everybody saw on the first day we wore our Greencastle United Stronger Together shirts because we really are a family here at GCSE, and we wanted to show that pride to our parents and community with that as well. And then I just have one item that I'd like to share because it does benefit Greencastle specific students. I think there's an article in the banner today where we had 18 students receive a $1,000 scholarship from Dollars for Scholars. If you've noticed, you've seen some signs around for the annual Farm to Fork dinner. This year, due to COVID-19, it's taking place in a drive-through style format. However, it's still a great opportunity to get a nice meal from Myers Market, but then also to benefit a good cause. So September 19th, 2020 at 6 o'clock at the Putnam County Fairgrounds. If you want additional information, I can share that to you, but I definitely wanted to share that for our partners. That's all I have under superintendent's report for this month.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is old business, and we have no old business. So the next item would be new business, and under new business we have an approval request for a reimbursement resolution. Mr. Gibney.
Yeah, so in your board packets is a reimbursement resolution. Essentially, I shared last month that I'm working to engage a group to do a facility assessment, a building study of our facilities, help determine estimates of cost and help us prioritize and sort for a potential future project. And this reimbursement resolution allows us to do just that, to potentially reimburse ourselves later on. If we're spending out of a rainy day, this allows us the authority to reimburse the district from potential bond proceeds.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the reimbursement resolution? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an approval request for a resolution for Fifth Third Bank. Mr. Newman.
Yeah, so this resolution allows us to update our Fifth Third account, make some changes to who is listed on the account. It also requires signature of the board president. So it's my recommendation that we update this resolution so that we can update our bank account.
Makes sense to me. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an approval request for permission to advertise the 2021 budget, the CPF plan, and the bus replacement plan.
Yes, so this is probably my most exciting time of year. I'm sure you are all fascinated to hear a lot about the budget as well. But in your packets is a copy of the presentation that Corey is shown above. So as is customary, as we go through budget season, I'd just like to share a little bit about kind of about how it works and a lot of factors that play into it. So if you remember correctly, a couple of years ago, there was legislation through the General Assembly that made some adjustments to some of our funds. So currently here at Greencastle, we are left with the Education Fund, which is the former General Fund. We have the Operations Fund, which is a conglomeration of the old Capital Projects Fund plan, the Transportation Fund, the Bus Replacement Fund. We have our Debt Service Fund, and that's obviously used to pay back our lease rental payments and pay back on some of the GO bonds that we've issued here. And then Pension Bond, that is used to pay back some of our liabilities from retirement severance debt that was issued quite a few years ago. Next slide please. I just thought it might be good to share kind of their overall use as well as their primary source of revenue. So we know that the Education Fund is funded through our state tuition support, which is directly reflective of our ADM, so our student enrollment. And Education Fund is used for instructional purposes, primarily for teacher salaries and benefits. Our Operations Fund are just that. They're to help pay for the operations within our school district. So myself and my office, as well as our transportation department, custodial staff, to help pay for building maintenance and grounds and things of that nature. And our Operations Fund is, we receive revenue through our local property taxes. Debt service, I mentioned, is to repay debt. Local property taxes is the source. And then obviously the same thing with the pension fund, to repay our debt, and we receive our revenue from local property taxes. So a little bit more on the Education Fund. So the next two slides, and I won't read through all those items, but you can see 20 different numbers. And this is one of the most difficult things in developing our budget, is we have to essentially work around 20 different variables on multiple different count days throughout the year to make a prediction on the amount of revenue we're going to receive. And the most recent thing that you've probably seen in the news is you've heard Governor Holcomb talk, about potentially moving our September count day to later in December. That doesn't guarantee anything for our school districts as far as funding, because I think we have shared, and Dr. McCormick has shared that during this crisis and during this pandemic, schools should be funded at 100%. Well, none of the legislature and the governor himself, they haven't taken any action to make that possible. All they have done is talk about it. So in order to make that entirely possible, because our count today could very well be our count in December, or our count in December could be much worse. So the only thing to fully protect our funding that we receive from our through tuition support and through our student count is for the General Assembly to convene and take action and pass law. So I think that's important to mention. So all those different variables go into helping determine the tuition support payment that we receive monthly from the Department of Education. And so that bottom number is based on an estimate that we submitted to the DOE based on 1,727 students. So when we're looking at our revenue forecasts, we always want to be conservative, and that helps protect you in case there's a shortfall. Because if you over project your revenue and then you overspend, then you're really going to dig yourself out of a deep hole. So tuition support is broken up into the basic grant. So basic grant is strictly off of our belly button count, so our per student count. Honors designation grant, so that's based on the amount of students who receive academic honors, and there are other variables that play into that as well. Special education grant, and so there are multiple different categories with regards to our special education account, and they're funded at different levels for each. And then also our CTE grant, so that's based on participation itself, and it's also based on participation in different courses. So one of the things, big changes, is the Department of Workforce Development now sets those caps for a lot of those classes based on reimbursement or how much money schools receive, and they set higher values to some categories than to others. So that is also a big piece of how we receive our funding. So if you go to the funding comparison slide, just as an example, FY20, that would have been, so another challenge in budgeting is we receive our revenue based on a fiscal year, so July through June, but then we budget based on a calendar year. So when you look at this funding, that's all based on a fiscal year. So the fiscal year that just ended is on the left, FY20, and then the scenario I described would be FY21, and that's on the right-hand side. So just to kind of show you a little bit of a comparison with that. Because they've increased our funding slightly, but due to our decline in student enrollment, that has resulted in a shortfall. So next slide. So everything that we're doing, every decision we make in the present has an impact on the future. So we can never lose sight of the big picture. We have to look at whether enrollment's increasing, declining. That's something that we have to forecast throughout the year, because we have to be proactive with our spending and our revenue forecast so that we don't end up into a big pickle down the road. Something I just like to mention is, flexibility can at times create danger. So, temptation in one year to spend on one particular area for this year because the funds are there this year, and we were able to complete that project, and then the next year the funds aren't there and we haven't adjusted our spending habits, then that can cause a dangerous situation. So thinking of it like the multi-credit cards syndrome. You spend your money, you transfer the balance. Well, you know that the balance is still there. They might not be charging the interest, but you have to pay it off. So you have to be careful with the expenditures. So moving on to the next slide, and to be honest, this is obviously totally a new process here for me because the county council approves our budget. So within our budget calendar, we have to include for some additional meetings and dates. Kelly and myself have been working hard collaborating together, and we'll represent the school district at some of these different meetings. So I just wanted to highlight those dates for you upcoming. So at future meetings, we'll have at our September regular board meeting, we'll have our public hearings and so forth before adopting in October with the council. The next slide, I just wanted to show just kind of a trend with our average daily membership, our enrollment, just so you can kind of see. And this is, I caution you because this kind of mirrors a lot of school districts around the state. As you can see, a slow decline in our enrollment trend, and that slow decline in the enrollment trend also obviously impacts our revenue. So in working with the budget, we began building this 18 months in advance. So we're building an 18-month plan for revenue, or forecasting revenue, and then we're also building an 18-month spending plan. So within this, we have to make several assumptions. Given our situation with declining enrollment and based on our fund balances, our cash balances, we're not in a dire situation at the moment, but if we're not careful, we will be, because we don't have heavy cash reserve. So when Kelly shared our fund balances earlier, as a rule of thumb, a healthy cash balance or to have as a reserve would be roughly 10 to 15% of your average monthly expenditure for each fund. So for instance, I think she was talking, one of the balances that she mentioned, was the education fund, and I think it was under $600,000. So right now, there's not enough reserve right there. If, for instance, the General Assembly and the DOE withheld a monthly payment, we would obviously have to dip into a rainy day, or we'd have to borrow money. The same thing could be said with our operations fund or any of our debt funds. If we don't have the money there and we have to make those payments, then we're going to have to borrow. And anytime you have to borrow, it's not a good situation. So the good thing is we have time and we have a plan, and we are going to. It's going to take time, but we will dig ourselves out of the situation we were in to be in a more effective, better situation later on. But with that, we're not going to create any new certified positions, or these are assumptions for 21 budget. There will be no new certified positions. We'll pay for 5 certified positions from the rainy day fund. Good assumptions, utilities will increase by 10% each year. Our property and casualty insurance, those things never really seem to go down. It will increase by 10% each year. Our ADM was 1,727 students. That's 63 less than fall of 19, but not quite as, it'd be less from falling from the spring. Virtual students will be funded at 100%. So again, right now we don't know if they're going to be funded at 100% or 85%. And then also that the General Assembly will propose no cuts to education funding in 21, or even at the end of this year. So all of those things go into play. Again, a lot of different variables factoring into that. The next slide is the education fund, and you can see that we've built an 18-month plan based on revenue estimates, and then we've also developed an 18-month spending plan based on that revenue. We don't collect a levy based on a tax rate for education fund. Again, that comes strictly from the DOE and from the state. The next slide, the debt service fund. You can see the revenue, $3,181,973, expenditures of $5,153,401, approval to advertise a 2020 levy of $3,316,742, or to advertise and that's a 2021 rate. Apologize, 2021 rate and a 2021 levy of just over 86 cents. So something else that's important to mention with this is our property tax funds. We determined the levies and rates based on 85% of our assessed value. So in working with the DLGF, Department of Local Government Finance, in order to make sure that you collect what you can collect and to protect your levies and rates, that we don't want to budget with 100% of our assessed value. So the actual rate the actual rate in order to collect that levy will be potentially much less, because our actual assessed value was just north of $450 million last year, and we built this on, I think it was $383 million. Pension debt fund, like debt service fund, the same way. Revenues for 18 months, $440,757. Expenditures for 18 months, so we make an annual pension bond payment, $369,169. We do not. So in order to pay back our pension bond, we actually neutralize our local income tax To do that, we don't collect we don't charge a rate to collect a levy. The next one, our operations fund, 18-month revenue of $6,840,523. Expenditures, $10,040,523. Request approval to advertise a levy of $3.8 million with a rate just over 99 cents. And then for rainy day, 18-month revenue of $2,107,132, and 18-month expenditures of $1,444,487. And we do not collect property tax dollars to fund rainy day. So these are leftover funds or unspent appropriations at the end of the year, and we can make transfers to rainy day. But that is something that's becoming increasingly difficult with how schools receive funding. So just some things to consider. Again, all the information used to build the budget 18 months in advance. Our final budget is determined by the rates approved by the DLGF, so they can come in here and they can cut us because, for instance, in operations, there's a max levy, so there's a maximum amount that we are able to collect, and they're not going to let you collect a penny more. The actual funding generated by ADM, and so that's our tuition support money that we receive from the DOE. Any miscellaneous revenue sources such as excise, FIT tax, commercial vehicle excise tax, and obviously our property tax funds. Federal sources, any additional state money or transfers, and then obviously the operating balance in each fund. I included a rate and levy history slide in your presentation. So again, you can see that column on the left-hand side. You can see we built, for instance, in 21, we built it off an AV of 383 million. So the left-handed side column, that's our advertised. And so that's based on a conservative AV. And then on the far right-hand side, you can actually see the certified amount based on the DLGF and an actual assessed valuation. Because we know if AV goes up, tax rate comes down. So I don't want anyone to be alarmed, by if that looks higher, because on the next page, request and permission to advertise total rate and levy. The total rate is $1.8582 with a levy of $7,116,742. So in actuality, we know that our rate for this year was $1.3650. So we know that amount is going to be less once AV comes back as actual. So in addition to request and advertise, our actual rate and levy, our total rate and levy, we're also requesting permission to advertise the CPF and bus replacement plans. That's a lot of information. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions tonight or on another day if need be.
There's a lot of good information. Thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions to ask this evening? Digested some.
Yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion then to approve permission to advertise the 2021 budget, CPF plan, and bus replacement plan? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an approval request for the revised 2020-2021 school calendar.
Yeah, so at the end of July, we essentially sought permission to delay the start of school by a week. However, we needed more time to determine where we could add those days back in. We do have to add 5 instructional days back into the school calendar. to meet that 180 days of student instruction. So I worked with the administrators and Ms. Hamilton and the GCTA to come up with a plan to do that. And essentially what we are doing, or in this calendar proposal, we'd like to turn 3 of the snow makeup days in February, March, and April into at-home learning days. So those will still be days where students won't come to school, or families already have plans to travel. However, they'll be at-home learning days, and we will work with teachers and families to make sure that those assignments are posted and those students have enough time to complete those assignments. And then the other 2 days that we captured would be by having teachers return on the 4th of January and students on the 5th of January, as opposed to the 6th and the 7th. So we have to have those 180 days. We didn't want to add them on to the end of the school year and have to move graduation. This really was we saw as the best format in order to add those days back. So it's my recommendation that the board approve the revised academic calendar.
Makes total sense to me. Okay, can I get a motion to approve? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an approval request for the crisis plan revisions for 2021.
Yeah, so I can't share specifics about our plan because that's obviously a protected document to help us deal with an emergency situation. But we like to have the board approve our updated plan each year. We're required by law to certify to the DOE within 60 days from the start of each school year that we have reviewed it and it has been updated. And our school safety team, led by Yolanda Goodpaster, has worked hard, has updated that document, and it's ready for board approval.
And all the changes that came to us were in green, right? So we can tell everything, yeah. Okay, can I get a motion to approve? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Dale.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is an approval request for the 2020-2021 Hendricks Regional Health Contract.
Yep, so this is essentially a rollover of our existing arrangement with Hendricks Regional Health to provide athletic training services for our Greencastle athletes. And the partnership has worked out well, and it has helped to keep our student athletes safe. And I believe her name is Alyssa, has really worked extra hard this school year in making sure everyone's safe and complying with our additional protocols. So I recommend the board approve this updated contract agreement.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an approval request for changing a special services bus short route to a special services bus long route.
Yeah, so we are fighting the daily grind with staffing. And Mr. Clearwaters has done a great job of making sure that we have drivers and have enough drivers. We're continuing to find new drivers. So if anybody out there knows anybody who wants to drive a school bus, please send them our way. if there are any teachers interested. But due to a lack of bus drivers, we just need to convert a short route to a special services bus long route. And so it's my recommendation that we do just that.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Last item on the agenda is an approval request for some donations. And you added a few on the list, so I'm going to let you read those off for us.
Thank you.
And we'll approve them all together.
Sounds good. We had a water bottle filling station water fountain donated from some anonymous donor for the high school. We have a donation of $1,250 from Edwards Royal Comfort to Greencastle High School Athletics. We have a donation of $1,199 from the Greencastle Football Parents Club to Greencastle High School Athletics. We have 2 donations from the Mary Allison Children's Trust in the amount of $1,000 each to Deer Meadow Primary and to also to Ridpath Primary. And then it was on Friday of last week, received 2 additional donations. One in the amount of $500 from Hendricks Power to Greencastle Community Schools, and also $500 from Park County REMC to Greencastle Community Schools. So we would like the board to accept those donations so that any of those funds can be put to good use, and certainly would like to thank our community partners for thinking of our kids and our schools.
That was the no-brainer of the evening. I get a motion to approve the donations. Well, I have a motion. Can I get a second? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Last item on the agenda, next to the last item on the agenda, I guess, is other business. Does anyone have any other business to bring up?
Thank you. Yeah, they did a really nice job with the football game.
Good to hear. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing no other business, can I get a motion to adjourn? Now he speaks up. Okay, I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for coming.